We poached it again.
A galactic purr of KKs
invites you to Space Cats Happy Hour.
Let your mind relax. We meet in a dimension outside of time,
where the playfully curious thrive. So go on, fill your tin cup chalice with the sacred elixir of creativity. Laugh till you breathe violet flame at the theme's absurdity.
and above all, let out your full-throated song with us.
Here at Space Cats Happy Hour with the galactic purr of KKs.
Hello. Welcome to the first episode of Space Cats Happy Hour with KK and KK.
Hello,
I
hello.
am Canadian KK. This is American KK.
Hello, Canadian KK from American KK.
KK and I are about to introduce ourselves, but we met in a pretty hilariously woo way because we're both part of this Patreon that's run by an embodied archangel person who's very cool, named AOE, that you can go check out on Instagram. And we were just really vibing with each other. And then we were having these cool monthly meetings where we got to know each other a little bit better. And we just it just all came together. And American KK was the brave one who actually suggested doing a podcast. And I was so excited. And we just wanted a place to have some fun. Am I missing anything about how we met?
I think that's actually a pretty good description because it feels like I think I joined the Patreon in February and you were already there. We've really only had a few months of, a couple meetings each month where sometimes we weren't always at the same meetings, but like we've only had a very few opportunities to actually talk and get to know each other. And like right away it was something something cool is here. And I love that you said that I was the brave one because I don't think I've ever used that word for myself in my entire life.
So brave, and I appreciated it so much. And you bring up a great point, which is that part of the fun of this podcast for us is we do not know each other well at all. We barely have any information about each other's lives, so it's going to be an opportunity to get to know each other as we record. Do you have a zippy introduction of yourself?
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about that because I'm like, I actually met a new person for the first time in a long time, like recently, and they were like, "Oh, tell me about yourself," and I was like, "Oh God, I don't even know how to."
It's
and
so hard.
Yeah, right. Let's see. I kind of describe myself as just like a life nomad, I guess. I pick a city I want to live in and then I find a job. Or, I've never had a settled outlook on like what life should be, even though a lot of me, the programmed part of me was like, oh, you should have a career by now or a house or whatever the standards are. And so I was like, every time I would feel stuffy where I was living, I would be like, okay, I need to go somewhere and I know I need to do this for myself, but also I'm holding on to the programming that's telling me like I shouldn't do that. And then so I would just be like this back and forth kind of person of like, okay, I need to stay here in this town this time and put down roots. And then it just never I couldn't do it. And so I spent a lot of time beating myself up about that. I just like a taster of life, I guess. There's so much out there. And so I've been kind of holding myself back, again, with that programming of like, okay, well, I'm not here at this point by this age or whatever. And I'm very excited because I have that background moving forward as I'm like waking up, which we'll get into. Don't worry, anyone listening. As I'm waking up, I actually really appreciate that background, even though I never considered myself brave. The fact that you said that word, okay, shit, I think I actually accidentally was or something. And so I'm happy to have that as we kind of move forward. So I can't, it's hard to describe myself because like I can't say, oh, I'm in HR right now, but I was a retail employee 10 years ago. And, I worked in a law firm. Like there's nothing that defines me other than like taster of life.
I forgot, along with our initials, which are KK, as a point of commonality, we have like every time we do get to know something about each other, we are very similar in all sorts of ways. So I have often called myself like in my head, a
Yeah.
happy dabbler.
Love it.
It's like my ideal life path is just kind of dabbling in a lot of different things. I don't think I've traveled as much as it seems you have, which is very interesting to me, all your travels. But I do enjoy traveling, but I have just kind of like dabbled in a lot of different types of jobs as well. And currently, I'm in the process of writing a young adult novel and some children's books.
Hell
And then
yeah.
I also do a bunch of energy work stuff that I'm terrible at summarizing. I just also kind of making my way through life, trying this on, trying that on, and a lot of stuff kind of sort of fitting, but not quite. And then came to spirituality like around a couple of years ago. And that just hit me like a bolt of lightning.
Same.
And seems to be my happy place.
Yeah.
We both decided to drink some mezcal for our
Yeah.
podcast episodes, and I'm drinking, I just want to show it because it's so cute, because it's this little nude person with a sun and a moon like riding like a dinosaur dragon, rainbow colored.
You guys,
Pretty good.
this label is the best. I think we need to put that label also, or a link to it in the show notes, just so people can see, because it's like my favorite thing right now.
It is awesome.
I'm definitely happy you suggested the mezcal, because I've never had it before in my life, even though I love tequila. So you'd think I'd have somehow found mezcal at this point in my life, but I never have. And so you were like, you also know that I can't really drink anymore. Like, again, I love tequila. I love wine. I love rum. Like, I love alcohol. It's such a good use of sugar, but I can't process sugar anymore. So I've just kind of like fallen off the drinking thing, just because like it makes my heart race. It feels weird in my body and it sucks, but I'm like, I still eat sweet things. Like I like maple syrup, coconut sugar. Like I eat dessert. My ass will tell you I eat dessert because it likes its dessert. Okay. But the mezcal is a good idea, because I'm just like, I want a little something to just kind of get the creativity juices flowing a little bit.
Yeah, and it was Noel Lampert's Synchronicity podcast where I heard about mezcal being different from alcohol, because I've just never had a super great relationship with alcohol, but I find that this is like just kind of opens different portals for me that I enjoy. So when we came up with this podcast, we were like, okay, we both have our ideas about what it's going to be, but let's not share them. Let's share them on the first episode about what we think without talking to each other, because that'll be kind of fun and interesting. Do you want to go first, American KK, about what you think people can expect Space Cats Happy Hour?
Perfect. I was hoping you'd ask me to go first, because I feel like I'm working on this a little bit as the years go by, but I feel like when I have an idea and I hear someone else's idea, I need to change my idea because it's not good enough. So what I think this podcast is going to be about is not only learning about each other from basically scratch, but also relearning about ourselves as you tell your own story and kind of hear the reactions from your fellow podcaster or whatever. It's like, oh, that is cool, or oh, that was fucked up, or like, it's a really cool perspective to like relearn about yourself by telling your story with a person you don't know. We're uncovering our friendship and also ourselves, and talking about woo ass spirituality, fun, like galactic nonsense in a very fun way. And we're doing this in a very playfully curious way, which is, I think we are both pretty aware at this point that life is supposed to be fun, and we are moving into something that is more joyful. So we're practicing with each other in a very safe and open way, kind of like building new avatars as we go. Oh, this is how
I love that.
And yeah, I think we're going to develop like little segments as we go. I don't know, book club segments or whatever. I mean, anything really. So that's kind of my quick 2-second impression of what we're doing.
You said that so beautifully and poetically. When I was like writing my bullet points, I'm a huge bullet point person of what I thought this was going to be. It was like defensive. It was like, this is a place where I can like share things I don't feel comfortable sharing anyway. I'm going to put out like my wild woo theories about things. I'm going to be very possibly incoherent and inconsistent because I'm trying to get more comfortable with that the aspect of being that consistency is not actually like a requirement for living on this planet. Yeah, my number one goal, which is a hilarious way to say this, is to just be silly and not take myself so seriously. Yeah. I think just like I'll probably like talk about topics I know very little about. Just throw my weird 2 cents in. And then we also said like a fun thing could be to just check in. Oh yeah, maybe some channeling too. I am pretty woo on my special woo Instagram, and I do channel entities and stuff. So I think we might get into like that kind of stuff too. But also just checking in like each episode with what's going on with the current energies, any like syncs or themes that are coming up, which I will tell you my theme that came up this week that I felt tied in with yours.
Yeah.
We tried to schedule this podcast, this first episode, a few times, but like nature kept getting in the way. American KK was going camping, and then I was invited to a cottage for the first time in my freaking life, and it was amazing. And I swam nude with loons, which is like,
oh hell yes,
just me alone, completely alone in a little lake with this pair of loons. It was so magical. But I really feel like ever since I've gotten back, nature's come a knocking. My friend just sent me today a video of a woodpecker ringing his doorbell by pecking at it. And then we had this raccoon on our back deck. I live with my partner, Mike, and he took this picture. He called it the visitor. And he took this picture of this glowing, terrifying eyes. And like, and then my friend who sent me the video of that woodpecker also was like, we have a visitor. So I was like, okay.
Oh my God.
Nature is a visitor.
Yeah.
So that was my theme that's been coming up.
Well, one, I wanted to just really fucking plug how beautiful you described this. Like, this is exactly, I love that we're doing this, because it's, as soon as you say something, I'm like, fuck yes, that is exactly. So thank you for saying all those words, because it was so different, but yet related and beautiful. And so I love how you put that out there, because that's a lot of, I feel like that's what we're going to be getting into a lot, is just like, it's okay to be inconsistent. It's okay to, live in joy. It's okay to be your full self. And I love that. So thank you for saying that. But yeah, the nature thing is definitely, I have not been camping in 21 years or something like that. I mean, it has been a minute, and it's always just like been for other people for me. Like I don't do it great for other people, but whatever. So I have recently moved, and the city that I'm moving in now, or living in now, I have a friend who is very outdoorsy. She's amazing. She like is nature. She's just like a walking piece of nature. She's just lovely. So she invited me to go on this overnight camping trip, and I said yes, because I was like, why not? I don't know. It felt like I needed to do it. And so I gave all the, previous warnings of like, okay, I'm a city girl. Like I'm going to bring all like 8,000 coats that I own. So I'm not complaining about being cold. And it was just like the most perfect thing of just, as soon as it didn't even last very long. We got there in the dark, we set up the tent, like whatever. And we just we journaled some and went to bed. And I just was being held by Mother Nature, which I have not done in a long time. Like I go out for walks and sometimes meditate by the river if there's no other people there or whatever, but I don't really do that. And I feel like the past few months in meditations, just like in my house or whatever, I have been focusing more on connecting with her and asking where the energy needs to go. And it's not a thing I've ever done before. And so anyway, that's me. So you go talk about, I want to hear more about your nature thing, because I'll add into it, but I think you've got a big chunk that needs to come through.
Well, just that we've already talked about this a little bit. My huge kick right now is the nervous system, and specifically the vagus nerve, which is this big nerve that runs down from the neck, connects into all the parts of the body. And the nervous system is I'm just like, okay, everyone's nervous system is completely fried and burnt out. And nature is this huge component of restoring it to its best, optimal, healthy, healed self. Oh, another thing with this podcast, I'm going to be terrible at referencing things because I never remember who said what, but somebody was saying about how the nervous system is what mediates between the physical realm and the spiritual realms. And I was like, oh my God, wow. It just like resonated like bong in my head. So I've been paying a lot of attention. I'm taking a course on the nervous system, and I just felt like the whole time I was there, where I was just this very different version of me who is so much more connected to the earth, because I'm just like, similarly, I'm like, I feel like I'm like a kind of a high maintenance city cat. But I was traveling with these two high maintenance fairy people they brought so much, like, okay, the person I was traveling with, my friend, he brought the tools to make his own pasta because he just brought
Amazing.
so many things. We had 7 bags of groceries for 4 days. It was bonkers. But then
That's my kind of trip.
yeah, it was like I was extremely pampered cottaging and the place was gorgeous. And I made a pact with arachnids in the area and the insects to stay away from me. And they really, really did for the most part.
Amazing.
But they had paddle boards. Like, these are the things that I never do. Like,
never.
I'm always like, oh, I'm gonna look awkward, or I'm gonna not enjoy myself, and I just don't want to get wet. And I was paddle boarded. Like, the first day I was like, I'm getting on that paddle board. I like did this tiny little terrified circle. I was like,
Oh.
but it's very easy and intuitive. Also, this beautiful tiny lake, no one else was there. Like, it was just ours. Every time we went out, it was gorgeous weather and no one was around. You could swim as nakedly as you wanted, which really made me feel better. Like, swimming naked is so much better than swimming in anything else. So I was like paddleboarding every day. I was swimming like multiple times a day. This is just not how I normally roll. And I just felt like I was just saying a big yes to things. And my sleep, we had been going through this huge cycle in the months leading up, where everything was so like with the energies, and
it's been rough.
It felt like a slog trying to work your way back from square one every day. And I just felt like this did actually accomplish the purpose of like resetting. It took me a few nights. Oh, this is a funny thing that happened. My friend's car, the bedrooms were like positioned in different ways, and mine was facing the area where the cars were parked. And in the it was like pitch black, 5 a.m. I wake up to these orange flashing lights in the window and this very strange car alarm, which was just high pitched beeping. And I was like, what's
going on?
At first I thought it was like somebody coming to tell us you did something wrong, like some kind of, I don't know what. And then I was, no, maybe it's this car alarm. It had never done that before. And especially the car alarm and the lights weren't connected to each other, so it didn't make any sense. And it also turned itself off. And then it kept doing it for like 24 hours afterwards. And then I was like, okay, I get it. It's the nervous system again. It's my nervous system is always set in this hypervigilance of going off for no reason. It's like, hey, you're safe.
I love how you make those connections. I'm working on allowing those things to come in instead of just dismissing them or like having a block to making those connections. But like, you make these very quickly. Well, it seems, I know to me, it feels very quick and it's awesome. I have felt on high alert. I have felt completely fried. And when you're saying that the nervous system is that regulator between the physical and the spiritual, I'm just like, dude, that has to be why people going through like crazy Kundalini awakenings, like sudden ones that really take them out. Not that ours have been super gradual, but like more than like other people who really explode all in one day. Their nervous systems are like, they have to go to like, are you
totally?
So, and that's how it feels. Like, this has been an insane, and I was actually, weirdly enough, I have not been on Twitter in like a year at least or something. And I got back on there for some reason. I don't know why, but because I did, I was like catching up on some of my favorite people and they had channeled some stuff about these energies coming in and how it is it feels like the light is being stripped from us because we're going into the darkness a little bit. I'm not going to be super clear because I can't remember exactly, but it was the light is not being stripped from us. It is intensifying and really cleaning out anything that is not from God or source or whatever you want to fucking call, spirit. And it's in that way of like, it's going to be lasting. It started for a while, I guess the channeled message I was reading was from August, but she was like, it's going to go through September. These things can all change. Every timeline we're on feels like it changes every 5 minutes. But anyway, the way that I was understanding the message is that it's really, it's coming in hard and fast, and it's really frying our nervous systems, but in the sense of removing, literally, it's like you haven't died hard or fast enough yet. So here we come, and we're just going to like take everything out that is old programming. And it's to get us ready for this whole, like, everyone else coming online. The other channeled message was about how you can't cheat your way out of this. If you have not done the true looking inside, and I'm going to call it shadow play instead of shadow work. I can't do the shadow work anymore. It's shadow play. So if you have
Yeah.
not done the shadow play, you are going to be held where you are until you do. She gave this image of, you know, how some students, like, you'll be in class and taking a test, and the rows of desks, and you can kind of look over someone's shoulder. She's
Yeah.
like, that's like when you're looking over someone's shoulder, their paper will appear blank to you because that's how serious, or I know how we're like, let's play, but she's like, this is serious. And it feels serious. Like, I don't mind taking things seriously, obviously. It is a quote unquote serious time of you're going to feel this until you have faced all the things. And I am feeling it.
Well, that's very interesting because I almost feel like I'm coming at it from the other end, which is being the type of person that spends too much time in shadow exploration and integration, and also tends to be too open with my boundaries of allowing any old energy from somebody in my life or the collective or what have you to come battle ram my nervous system. And I feel like my higher self is leading me now to be like, no. This past month of just being completely like dragged around by my neck by these energies, it was like, that's enough of that. That's enough of fucking with my sleep. That's enough of, I pulled these cards while I have this beautiful tree deck, the Wisdom of the Trees Oracle. And I pulled these two cards and they were both protective of the spiritual realm, hazel and juniper. So immediately I was like, okay, I am weaving these into my protection, and I'm weaving them. Like, I started doing like an actual buffer on my nervous system of like, and I was like, it's fine. Like, the collective is going through some shit, but I've been in this shit for a while now, and I'm ready to be like very calm and like very steady and very pleasurable in my body.
Yes.
I don't think one is right and one is wrong in any way, but it's just like very much where I was going with it was like, yeah, this is fine, but also you can say I'm done with processing the collective energies right now. I've done a lot of that, and I'm good. I'm good to be in my own energy for a while and just be me.
That's exactly, and we kind of talked about this on our Instagram live a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
But it was like that,
which was like, what the fuck are these energies?
basically. But yeah, it's like that consent thing where it's like, are you going to just keep taking it and like, you know, the macroing stuff, which again, we'll get into what that is or whatever, but like, are you, or when do you put up the boundaries to like say, okay, higher self, I know we have a plan, but we can also rewrite that plan because I am dying in this human body right now. Like, holy shit. And it feels, I actually went to acupuncture yesterday, and she was like, asked me how I was. And I was like, I feel like I'm on fire. And she was like, like hot. And I'm like, no, she was like, oh, are you always hot inside? And I'm like, no, I'm actually always kind of freezing inside, but it's like that burning that is cold fire. I don't, and it's like, you know, just around in my inside.
Interesting.
And that's what my nervous system is feeling like, is that cold fire, just like everywhere. Just, I feel like I'm hanging on by my fingernails just to life right now. The shift that I was feeling on Saturday was doing that. I did a timeline jump. And again, we'll get into all of these fun words, but the timeline jump that I did, I was practicing with another person who was training to do this timeline jumping guide stuff. And she took me super deep in the void. I was like in there, and my intentions going in there were to like become more fully myself, live fearlessly, enjoy, you know, like I just put a whole bunch of shit out there just because I was like, I cannot, letting go of anxiety. I was like, I cannot fucking do this anymore because I can't live with this fire and nausea just constantly in my body.
Yes.
And so I felt like I just put on a new suit, like literally stepped into a new reality sort of. And I'm
That's
not
awesome.
saying that I don't have anxiety. Like, it's still there, but it's like this weird protective shield that's let it soak in. Whatever it like, it's hard to say because it feels like it needs to soak in whatever it is, like this shield of awesomeness. So I'm still experiencing that cold fire and that anxiety and a bunch of other shit, but like it has shifted into a way where I'm like also on top of that able to enjoy true joy and contentment in every day, at least at some point, which I was not able to do before.
Yeah.
So little by little,
That's amazing.
something is happening that's good, but like I still feel like I'm hanging on by my fingernails a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, it's rough out there.
Still intense.
It's really intense out there. And I feel like it's not the end of that by any
Mm.
stretch.
Do you have a sense on what the time? I mean, it's hard to get a sense of time anyway because it's so crazy, but
That's very interesting. I don't usually tend to come up with timelines on my own. I
sure.
usually like hear other people's and then they
Yeah,
do or don't resonate with me. So
same.
what I have heard, we may have heard from the same sources of Jessa Reed's like soberish Patreon and stuff,
Yeah.
is things about February 2022.
Yeah.
Things are going to settle down a bit in terms of like the current stuff, like the current pandemic stuff, I think,
Yeah.
like that. But then there's a lot of talk with people about like the energy of the earth and things
Yeah.
getting even wilder with earth style catastrophes. And then there's talk of the most recent thing I heard that I thought was really interesting was somebody saying by 2035 is when the utopia really kicks in. But
Okay.
by 2027, like we're in a current 10-year cycle that started in 2017 that goes till 2027. That is like when a lot of the major societal collapse changes and pivots happen that take us towards this utopia, which is interesting to me because my awakening started in 2019. My dark night of the soul started late 2016. So I don't know. I don't know if I feel like I'm like, is it 2027 for me or is it
Yeah.
2029?
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, those are the things that I've heard that the 2035, I was like, aha, that makes sense to me
Okay.
as like a realistic
It does. Yeah.
linear time progression for things to change collectively and globally. I don't by any stretch think that for people who are already like very conscious of themselves being gods, that it's going to be such a wild ride. My big prediction is that it's like the people who are really conscious of their power now are going to step more and more deeply into it, become more and more aware of how that ripples out into the collective. And then they are going to just be kind of watching the world as the world like sorts itself out and then falls back a bit. So I think we're gonna like make some collective progress, and then it's gonna be like, oh no, we're falling into like separation and enemy narratives again. Oh, is this gonna? But because we've done, the people who've like, yeah, I know, but it's cool. I've done my work. I feel pretty inner solid. We're gonna be like, okay, I guess we're going back into this narrative for a bit again. I roll, but
But we'll
it's
be
not
okay.
gonna like, it's not gonna kind of like hurl us around and fuck with our nervous systems. I think this year is very much get right with your nervous system and get in resonance with the earth.
That resonates with me. I hadn't heard the 2030, or at least I forgot about the 2035. I don't remember that very much, but it's interesting how it ties in with, I just signed up for an astrology class, so I've only had one session or whatever, but like I am so fascinated with what the planets are telling us or what they have to say. And I think I'm just feeling really called to like learn about astrology to hear what the planet's messages are. And not that I'm gonna be some fucking prophet or whatever. I just like they're talking all the time and they're giving us guidance and messages and like lessons and whatever the fuck they're giving us. And I'm just like not tuned into it. And I feel very much the need to root into the earth as well as listen to our neighbors. I don't like the neighbors in the sky. Just like I need both of them. So I'm not an astrologer by any stretch of the imagination, but the few things I'm learning about like the Pluto return of the United States, we'll just go into that later. I don't want to, I mean, I'm happy to now, but like basically when a planet completes an orbit and returns to its original point in time at a birth of something, a nation, a person, whatever, people do not live to see Pluto returns because it takes 247 years, but empires do. And so the American Empire having their Pluto return in 2024.
Is it 2024?
2024, I think it is. Yeah. So basically a handful of years on either side. And so Pluto is like death, destruction, transformation, rebirth, all of that stuff. So it's going to make us, and it's because it's slow moving, it's going to grind us to a halt until we look at everything, not just rush through the process, but look at everything and then rebuild as we figure out what works and what has not been working for however many years. And so that timeline, the 2024, 2027, those felt like pretty big chunks of year. And you know, you get handfuls of years on either side. So it's not going to be 247 years exactly and everything changes. It's maybe even a decade on either side where you see that stuff. And I know that's United States. It's not like the worldwide whatever, but like in America where I am and like all the stuff that's happening, I'm like, this fucking makes sense. So I'm just excited to learn what the planets are saying about the world in general, like what the fuck is going on, and even for us as individuals, because this feels
we're
very
gonna have
important.
to do an episode where you talk more about your learnings with
No problem.
astrology for sure, because that's one of the things that we were talking about was like I think we have different areas of like strong points and interests and stuff, so I can't wait for you to explain stuff to me more, because astrology is always like I'm like I don't know.
I know, right? Same. Yeah, same. And it's never been a thing I felt confident in even trying. And now I'm like, actually, I need to learn more shit. I just feel like my creativity muscles have atrophied over these years. And it's very interesting to me that you said your Dark Night of the Soul is in 2016, because I didn't realize I was having a Dark Night of the Soul, but it was definitely 2016.
2016 to 2019.
Yes.
I was propelled into an awakening. You know, I'll share that story at some point. But like, I definitely want to like have an episode where we share awakening stories too, because those are very interesting to me. But yeah, we're very
we're there. Do you want to get into some questions, or do you want to keep doing the energy stuff?
I do think, as you were introducing yourself, I was like, okay, my first question definitely makes sense to ask. It was, how many places have you lived in your life, and where do you live now? Oh yeah, we were going to do like a 20-ish questions, but maybe not that many to get to each other. Some spiritual, some not, some silly.
Yeah. 20-ish questions. It'll just be recurring because we're going to have so many questions for each other. We'll just be like, okay, another segment called 20-ish questions. Okay, so where have I lived? Let's see. I'll just take you through the thing. I grew up I was born in Michigan. Then I moved to Indiana like very young. So like my memories of Michigan are very few. So very like 5 years old, I think I was in Indiana, which I grew up in Indiana. The Midwest, I know people make fun of it, and they're totally welcome to, and it's great. Like, I don't care. Like, whenever I think about the Midwest, it's just like a comfortable pair of, you know, sweatpants or whatever. Just like, to me, it's coming home, and I love the cornfields, and just, I know that there's plenty of people who would be like, Indiana isn't the Midwest, it's on the East Coast. And I'm like, who the fuck, what geography lesson did you take in school? It is not the East Coast. It is close, but it's not, anyway, whatever. So Michigan, Indiana, and then I was close to Ohio. So like my grandparents lived there. So I kind of lived in Ohio because I spent so much time there, but like not technically. So okay, anyway, that we'll just count that as 3. When I went to college, that's the first time I like lived somewhere not home, and that was in Tennessee, so Nashville. I lived there, and I stayed there for like a year after graduating to just be like a server at a restaurant and like listen to music all the time. And anyway, so I lived there for a minute, and then I was like, I feel like moving to Chicago. So I fucking moved to Chicago, and I worked in a law firm, whatever. So I love Chicago. Chicago is,
I'm loving this story.
It's really, it's a fun, we'll get into more details on all these things, but like just to quickly go through my things. So Chicago was awesome. And then I was like, wait, I need to be in publishing. I'm going to move to New York. So I moved to New York, and I've lived in Brooklyn. So I lived in Brooklyn. I kind of switched back, like you move back and forth between like so many, housing is hard in New York. So I like Brooklyn and Manhattan, and then like Brooklyn again. Anyway, so there's that. And then I was like, that fell apart.
You lived inside someone's oven.
Basically. Basically, like the bathrooms are all like next to the kitchens, and like you can't anyway, yeah, we'll have some fun things to talk about with those living situations. Wow. And it was really cool. And I made some awesome friends, and I was really sad to leave, but like my life kind of fell apart, which that will bring in my interest in numerology, which is another thing I'm starting to learn about, but we'll get into that later. So anyway, at that age, when I'm at now having learned about numerology, I'm like, oh, that makes sense that my life fell apart at that age. Like, anyway, so my life fell apart there. And I was like, I just randomly was like, why am I not teaching English in France right now? Like, I want to live in France. I'll live there for the rest of my life. I'll get a teaching job there, and then I'll I don't know, I'll find a job there. So I like got a job through the government to teach English in like a suburb of Paris. So like I kind of
Ooh.
lived in Paris. I forget the name of the suburb even, honestly. Anyway, so it was just like a high school that I was teaching at. That didn't, it was awesome, but like it didn't quite work out. I was like, okay, I really need to come back to America. So I came back to New York and just found a job at a retail store called Patagonia. So I worked there, and then I was like, I can't live here anymore. It's too much. I need to go to Seattle because I want to be Fraser Crane.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
I moved to
Wow.
Seattle. And I transferred to work at the Patagonia store out in Seattle. Okay, so I loved it out there. It was awesome. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. I gotta go. And so a job happened to open up in the college that's in my hometown in Indiana. So I moved back to Indiana, and then I was like, I'm just gonna never leave here again. I can't do it. And that was in about 2016 was I moved out of Indiana again because like I had that dark night of the soul, but I didn't realize that's what it was. I moved out to Wyoming just to like, so my mom was out there working at this other school, and she was like, well, they need an HR person. And I'm like, fuck it, let's move to fucking Wyoming. So I moved to Wyoming. And that's where I have been for 4 years until June of this year, 2021, when I lost my housing because there's a housing crisis fucking everywhere these days. And so I have a friend in Missoula, Montana. And I was like, fuck it. I know someone there. Let me find housing there. I made that sound very easy, but I am like, again, hanging on by my fingernails. So I moved in August 1st, and now I am here in Missoula, Montana. That's the list of places.
Okay, so first I have to say ley lines, baby.
Oh shit.
You gotta be. I'm always very
my
interested in people who travel a lot, especially people who were able to travel during the pandemic, because I think they were doing so. I think travel is such an
Whoa.
like nomadic living, and traveling is such an important way of moving
Wow.
energy across the planet. And like that's why borders, we have all these like regulations and restrictions, because these
wow.
things that we set up to like restrict the flow of energy because it's so
Wow.
powerful. So people who are big travelers are doing constant ley line work, in my opinion. I don't know if you're like part
That makes
gnome or elemental of some kind.
Oh my God. That is cool as shit. I literally didn't think about that. Like, I love traveling so much, but I was like, oh, okay.
Like you're just crisscrossing the freaking US, especially. I'm sure you're doing like so much, especially because you like, this is one thing I do know about American KK is that you like dream and astral a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you're just doing so much energy work. That is like,
Wow.
whoa. I also find it really interesting that you went to France, because I have all this past life karmic stuff with France. Like I'm
Oh.
very much connected to the UK Empire,
Okay.
both in my ancestry on my dad's side and also just like past lives, hugely connected.
Amazing.
And I have a lot of stuff with France.
Okay.
Like a lot of like boop boop. I think this is like also an important, I mean, I lived in Quebec too. I grew up in Quebec, which is like I speak French, but it's a very, I've
Ooh.
always had a very fraught relationship with anything French. Like it's
Yeah.
always like a bit, you know.
Yeah.
So I think this is really cool. Like I
Understand.
feel like this is healing as
excited.
well that we're
Ooh.
doing. And I'm sure that was the other thing I was gonna ask you, was like, you must have a lot of past life in the US
I think
to
I
do so
do.
much US crisscrossing.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I haven't really dived too hard into past lives. The only past lives that I have had readings about were actually in Ireland, I think.
Oh yeah,
or
that
maybe
makes sense too.
England. Maybe one of each. Maybe one in Ireland and one in England. I can't remember. I am super into trying to dive deeper into that stuff because I really haven't. I know that we both I feel like have had a shitload of lives in this unconscious age in particular, and so I'm very
Yes.
excited to get into that because I think you're gonna unlock some stuff in me. I hope I help you too, but like I think you're gonna help me unlock a lot of these things that I just have not gotten into yet. But yeah, I feel like whenever I feel drawn to something, I'm like, okay, does that mean I've had a past life there? I don't know. Because there's so fucking much.
Yes. I know there are a lot of different views out there in past lives, and I totally like, I think it's very person to person specific, but I definitely have a very long connection to human history in past lives.
That makes sense.
That's very interesting. Oh my goodness. What a cool life. I love it.
You know, throughout all of this, I'm just like beating myself up because I'm like, at whatever age, like I don't have a boyfriend or girlfriend, or, you know, I don't have blah, 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 you know, all that shit. But like now that I have perspective, I'm like, thank God. Thank God I did that. Thank God I don't have, whatever it was tying me down, and I'm able to, I mean, there's nothing is perfect or whatever, but I'm still grateful for like the journey so far anyway. But I wanted, like, that was actually one of my questions to you, was like, have you ever lived anywhere other than Canada, or even within Canada or in the world?
Okay, so I grew up in the Eastern Townships in Quebec, in this little Anglophone. So Quebec is very, very Francophone province, but there's these Anglophone enclaves, and that was one of them. And it had a lot of, it's like a region. Like I lived in a small town, and so there were like small town aspect.
Mhm.
It was a university town, but there were also like so many hippies and back to the landers that brought a very interesting energy to that region, and a lot of Jewish hippies. I'm Jewish on my mom's side, so that was also like a very interesting connection. It was an interesting place to grow up. There's a place near me where one of my really close friends' family is from, which is kind of like the Sonoma. It's like an energy center of Canada,
Very
of
cool.
North America, kind of like Sonoma. So
Okay.
yeah, and then I moved to Montreal, and I lived in Montreal for a long time. When I was a kid, I lived in England for a year with that English. I'm
Oh,
telling
cool.
you, like my connection, currently trying to get back to England because I think I
Okay.
have some business to do there.
Very
And
cool.
so yeah, I was like 7 and I lived in Oxford with my parents
Ugh,
for a year. It was very interesting, very magical.
I love
And
that
then
town.
my
So
mom's family is from Turkey. They are Sephardic Jews from Istanbul. Even though I haven't like lived in Turkey, I've spent over a year to 2 years of my life in Turkey.
fascinating. Shit,
And
this is like a sync for me, because I've been getting guidance to go to Turkey for years now, but I didn't know why or where
very
it was coming from.
interesting.
Okay, sorry to derail you, but this is fucking amazing
No,
to me. Okay, go
yeah.
ahead.
So then that
Wow.
side of my family is like, obviously they're Sephardic. So they're originally like Jews expelled from Spain. So there's like a Spain connection. And then there's the Turkey. And then there's some of them who went on to Israel. So there's that area of the world that I also do. Like I have a lot of family in Israel, Palestine area. My last place that I moved to that I've been living in for a lot longer than I thought I would is Toronto in Ontario. That's been interesting because I very much have that kind of soul resonance with Montreal and England, Oxford, where I lived, and even a little bit the Eastern Townships. But Toronto is like the first place I've lived where I didn't feel that deep past life soul connection.
Okay.
Yeah, and not that it's not without its
Yeah.
charms and stuff, but yeah, I've been there for a long time. So
That's
those are the places that it's a lot less
I love
traveling.
this. No, I love how, like, it is my dream to like live in as many, especially now that I've lived so many places in America. Like I've done a lot of traveling outside of America, but I've never lived anywhere except for France. And so my goal before the pandemic was actually before my dark night of the soul, which I didn't realize was a dark night of the soul. Before 2016, I was like, I'm going to live in every country. Not really, but like, I'm going to have like a list of
Oh.
countries that I'm just going to live in. How I was going to do that, I don't know, but like I never know how I do anything anyway, so whatever. And Turkey's on the list. There's just a bunch of different things, and I want to like live in all of these places, even if it's for a year, to just like
Yeah.
be there. I need to do that, but I don't. I'm still trying to work out how that actually. And then I
Listen,
woke up and realized I was
your
a
ley
god.
line work. Yeah.
I guess, yeah. So I'm like,
You
well,
got to there's some very interesting energy centers in like Cappadocia in Turkey, which I have yet to go
Understand.
to and I really want to go to. But that's like one of like if you look up online, like the world, like energy centers and stuff, it was actually interesting because like there's like the old versions and then there's these new updated ones. And that was the one that had the place in the Eastern Townships near where I grew up. And then also Cappadocia in Turkey, where I was like,
Okay.
interesting.
I think one of the chakras of the earth is there. It's either in Turkey or Armenia, or like right
Yes,
there.
which is a big Armenia is a
yeah.
big thing for
Armenia for me too.
me.
And that's another place where I'm like, ugh,
Mount
I feel the
Ararat.
draw. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
This is fucking fascinating. Do you have like a favorite place that you've lived? Like you would, or do you have a travel list of like, I want to live here too? And I know you want to go back to England, but
There were times where I thought I was going to live in Turkey.
Mhm.
I don't know if I feel that timeline so much anymore, but definitely the Middle East calls to me in a big way. And then there's parts of Europe that call to me too. And I guess other than that, South America, where I also have a friend friend who's half Colombian who's living there right now. So that's
Amazing.
interesting. But I've never been there, and yeah, that one feels more
Yeah.
like whoa,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
sometimes there's aspects of the States. I do have some ancestry from the States as well, on my dad's side.
Do you know
Mhm.
what area?
Actually, I don't, but I like the name, like my family name is very connected to like Philadelphia
Okay,
on that
that makes
side.
sense.
So I don't know if my direct descendants live there.
I also want to go to South America. I'm like, well,
Mm,
I get the earth, the sacral chakra is in Lake Titicaca, I
right.
think. Yeah, because the root chakra is in like the Mount Shasta area, I think. And then the sacral chakra is Lake Titicaca. The Kundalini switched from somewhere in the head chakra region of the world, and then it's now Earth's Kundalini is now in the sacral region in Lake Titicaca, which was
Right.
2020, or sorry, which was 2012, which was that huge shift of the divine feminine rise trigger.
Right.
And so I think any sacred traveling you would like to do would need company. I will pack myself in your suitcase and travel with you because this is like, I want to go everywhere. Yeah.
Oh, Mike, my partner, feels very called to Australia and New Zealand. And there was
Ooh.
a time where we were like considering hopping on a timeline of moving out
Ooh.
there too. And then there's that, what is that big red rock thing that's there? It's like Ayers Rock
Uluru?
or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
Uluru.
you're right. You
Okay,
have it.
good.
I've had visions, like I've had meditative like travels there and stuff too. That feels very, yeah,
That's cool as
he's
shit.
very connected. He's very much part gnome and very connected
Oh,
to the ley lines. So I
I
think
love
like,
that. That's cool as
but
hell.
I don't know if I feel as connected to like the ley line work
Mhm.
myself or like needing to visit the chakras. Maybe that'll come. I think it's really
Yeah, I don't.
interesting, but I feel it from him. I feel like he needs to go places.
Yeah.
He's had jobs that took him all over the States too, even though he's Canadian.
Oh, wow.
He's had multiple jobs that had him crisscrossing the States as well, which I
Oh.
think is interesting.
Very fascinating. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually just joined Grooving Goddesses Patreon because I want to learn more about grid working. Because I feel like if I've been doing it unconsciously, let's do it consciously. Like,
Yes.
I don't know. Like, I don't even know what all I'm doing. Like, I know with this macro stuff, we're doing emotional things or whatever, but also we're earth connected. I'm just
Yeah.
fascinated to uncover all this. And I'm finally in a spot where Saturn is in, I forget what house Saturn is in for me right now, but it's very much like teaching me a lesson of surrender. I'm in this, like, you are going to pay attention to your internal world. And so
Right.
I have it. And I keep trying to like rush through it, and I physically cannot do it because it's not time for me to move through. Like, this project with you is the first new thing I've done since probably 2016. I mean, yes, I moved and started a new job or whatever, but I haven't created anything or thought about life purpose work or any of that stuff until this year. And then like I was trying to rush through, like, okay, I have a life purpose, let's go, I'm supposed to be a healer, blah, blah, blah. And that's not, you can't build a business like that. You have to actually get all the things anyway. So
I was
there's a process.
just getting a lot of messages about like take it slow. It's okay to go slow and stuff too. Yes, there is a process. Yeah.
I was actually going to ask if you have a favorite childhood memory that reminds you of who you are now.
Ooh, oh, that's a really good question. Okay, well, I'll share a dream. So, because that's one of my things was about being in my early years on Earth is that I was not one of those people who felt like I didn't see fairies. I didn't have a vivid imagination at all. I didn't have any imaginary friends. I didn't have any sense of myself as anything other than a human being. I felt like I came into the world with a lot of knowing of humanity and human history and a lot of baggage. But I had a close friend who was like from the age of 9 was attending channeling sessions and stuff like that. That was like kind of like a little bit of like, I will totally I don't want to tell her stories, but I'll totally get into that. But that was not my experience of life at all. And my parents were not woo in any way. They were both kind of nerdy academics.
Sounds about right.
But I had very vivid dreams. And my first dream that just really stuck with me. And then finally, when I had my awakening, I was like, I just keep uncovering like layer of layer. And I was like 5 when I had it. And this was the 80s. So I hadn't come into contact culturally with any of the things in my dream. And it was a dream of, there were 2 parts. There's one part, I was on a ship and I was in the captain's cabin, and I was me. I was like little 5-year-old child.
That's adorable.
And it was very detailed. And there was a very like sad, nostalgic, heavy feeling. And I was just looking around the cabin, and then I looked above the desk, and there was like a cupboardy thing that you could pull down the thing to, and I pulled it down and some papers fell out. And as that happened, I heard this big foghorn sound and the ship started to move, and I knew that whatever I'd done had caused it to leave. And I was like, I'm all alone, completely alone on this ship, and it's like taking off. And through the window, like my family and also my neighbors down the street were like all standing on the shore. And I was like, God. It was like this very like deep, sad nostalgia. It was like, I'm leaving my community. I'm like gone. It just had like this atmosphere to it. And I just remember I would tell everybody like who's close to me in my life about that dream at some point. And then the other aspect of it was seeing all those people go across this wire. They were on one shore and there was another shore, and they were going across this high wire, and then this huge black stone things came and like cut when they were on the other side. I was always like, what the fuck does this dream mean? You know, and then when I started my awakening, I was like, oh, that's like I left my home planet.
I mean,
in a ship, like interdimensional travel to come to Earth.
This is amazing.
So yeah, it was very much my dreams. That was like the one thing where I kind of connected to myself. And it was also very important to me for that, because this stuff is so, especially if you've not been grown up with any kind of connection to it that normalizes it and is like, yes, this is a part of human history, we've always had these abilities. When it just feels so like outlandish, and you start going into like paranoid spirals of like, is like the CIA planting these ideas in my brain? I was like, no, I had this dream when I was like 5 years, you know, like I could point, like it was very like crucial for me to be like, no, I've literally my whole life, I was getting these messages about myself that were like, hey,
fucking amazing. We're gonna have like a dream segment too. I swear to God, you have the best dreams. Like I think we both do, but for some reason yours just seem very much like mine. Kind of just feel like dreams, and like yes, I can interpret them or like whatever in whatever way, but I feel like shit happens in your dreams that is like just real life stuff. Like it feels so real, and like sometimes prophetic, and sometimes just like memories, and like it just feels like this movie that's playing, that's like, here's a snippet of your life. It is the coolest shit that I've ever heard, and I'm so glad you're telling me about this, because that was awesome. And it's so funny that you brought up imaginary friends, like because as I was writing that question, I was literally thinking about how I was so upset as a kid that I didn't have imaginary friends, or at least I don't remember it. I heard of other people having imaginary friends, and I was like, well then why don't I have any? Why can I just make one up? And like I never did, I don't think. I mean, maybe my family has other memories of me like talking about an imaginary friend, but to me, I never had.
You know, I had a session with AOE, who I mentioned at the top of the show, and she was telling me, I found it so healing, because I really carried that around as a bit of like, I was like, well, how come it took me so long to like tap into any of this stuff, you know? And like, why was it when I was a kid, like, why did I have like zero imagination and like, no? And she was like, no, it was intentionally being withheld from you, because if you tapped into it that early, you would have bypassed lessons that you wanted to learn. So it was like, it was intentionally not a path that you were being guided down. Like,
okay, that makes me
really made me feel so good.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
That definitely makes me feel better, because I feel like I did a lot of reading as a kid. We didn't really watch TV, so I did reading a lot. And so I feel like that was obviously helped my imagination, and I was very quiet. Like, I did not talk to anyone. I would lock myself in my room and like read books and not, whatever. And like, I know that I had an imagination, and I'm sure that I was writing in a journal at some point, like whatever, but it was always that, I don't have any documentation of that imagination. So it feels like I didn't, but I know that I was reading, and I know that I liked writing even at those young ages. And I thought for a minute that I wanted to be a cat. Like, so I would like walk around and like eat pretzels out of a bowl on all fours, like a cat would eat cat food. Like, so I did shit like that, but like I just, the imaginary friend piece, all, and like not being able to see fairies or, you know, whatever the fuck that everyone talks about their cool things that they see. I'm like, but I never, what? I didn't talk to ghosts anyway. So this is making me feel a lot better because I'm getting to the point where I can recognize that my soul put those blocks in so I would be where I am today and ready the way that I am today. And I don't feel ready at all because I feel like I'm hanging on by my fingernails, but like I recognize that I am ready in a way that I would not have been if such and such or whatever hadn't happened. Or that, thank you for saying that because that validated my existence in a way that I didn't know I needed.
Same. I was like, thank you, AOE. I just like took so much pressure off. It was like, nope, it wasn't meant to happen then. But the thing about the cat, yes, I would communicate in meows. I find it very, I still communicate in meows. I find it very tiring to communicate in human language, even though I'm a writer. I'm just like, and I will just always fall back with like my mom when I was young, and then like my partner now. I'm just listen to my meows and know what I mean, please.
That's wonderful.
Like, I think I actually probably like took a break from human incarnations to have cat life fairly recently in like my past life. Perhaps you as well.
Oh, I want to get into
eating the pretzels on the floor.
I know, right? Oh man, that was yeah, that memory is funny. But that's, I've been starting to wonder about non-human incarnations that I've had. I don't have memories yet, but like I'm very excited to get into that because I feel like already I am a cat because when you talk about talking in meows, even though I don't do that, I know exactly what you're saying. Like, as soon as you say to communicate in meows, I'm like, yep, that makes sense. Like, and I just, if you were to describe me as an animal, I feel like it would be easy to describe me as a cat because that's how I identify. I'm sure there are other animals that I can also identify with, but just let me curl up, let me sleep for 19 hours a day, give me some pets, some good food, let me run around for a minute, and then I'm fine. And also don't touch me unless I want you to be in my energy. Otherwise, fuck off.
Cats are such great boundaries teachers. They are the best for that.
They're really fantastic.
Well, I was like, because I've been on this, which also I think we have some commonality there, but gender journey.
Yeah.
And I was getting really stressed out with the pronoun thing. There's a lot of stuff where it's like the filter of like human experience just doesn't really touch who I feel I am. And I had a breakthrough recently. I was like, what would I actually, and I was like, well, it'd be meows. And so I was like, if I was like actually being addressed, it would be like meows in person. So I have that.
I love it.
My regular Instagram account now is just pronouns are meow, purr, fuck, whatever, you know? It's like,
I love that.
With your language pronouns.
I love that so much. Well, and and that's how that ties back to you being the very first thing you were talking about the podcast, not being consistent if you don't fucking feel like it.
Yes.
Fucking make your pronoun a meow. Who gives a shit? Like, this is fun as hell. This is a playground. Call yourself whatever the fuck you want and just have fun with it. And if somebody can't accept that, it's their problem. You're right.
Yes.
Boundaries are a huge thing right now too. Nature and boundaries and the nervous system and all of it's tying together. I feel like that show where you're like, it's all connected. I don't know what that is from, but
okay. So I have a question. Do you have a favorite dirty joke?
Oh man.
And the other one was, which cartoon character or characters best sum up your current avatar and also your higher self?
Oh my God, there's so many good dirty jokes. What the fuck? I mean, of course I can't.
Take your time and you can defer until next episode if you like.
I love this because I think we're also going to connect on dirty humor, which is very exciting to me because that is a thing that not everybody can do. So thank you for existing. Damn. Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll come back to that for sure because I know there's some good ones. The cartoon character. This is not a cartoon character, but it's like a fantasy character. So like, I don't know if you've ever seen like Pippi Longstocking.
Yes. Love that.
I watched I watched all those movies growing up 800,000 times. My mom was probably just, let this VHS please wear out so I don't have to watch Pippi Longstocking anymore. I watched it so many times, like with my sister, like whatever. I was Pippi Longstocking for Halloween so often that I was still doing it in college. I was not every year, but like in university, I have a picture that my braids, and anyway, I just loved her world. She was just like,
Yes.
God, that playful curiosity, I guess, and just magic. The other ones I liked, anything unicorns. I feel like there was a thing I used to watch that had a unicorn in it, but I can't remember what it was. Unicorn dragon type stuff. There are so many mythical creatures that I feel very strongly connected to. But like,
Yes.
as far as if I could sum it down to one, Pippi Longstocking is just, I'm like, I want to be her, kind of.
And that feels like the embodied version of you.
Yeah. Yes.
Mhm. Oh.
And that might change. Maybe you'll ask me this question again and I'll give you a different answer, but I like that answer for now. And I want to
Well,
hear yours.
unicorns are such a great frequency. That's very amazing. Actually, I know. I was like writing these questions and I was like, I should have an answer to these. So it was like
Nice.
all the stuff. Huge, huge, huge reader. You actually remind me of my first best friend.
Cool.
Just a little bit physically, but when you said you just read more than watching TV, like that was very much her life
Oh, cool.
as well. And she and I connected extremely hardcore over books.
Oh,
But
so
I
fun.
just find there's nothing like books for me have been the places where even though I was very like rooted, as I said, into like human understanding of things. When I went into certain books that were magical, it always gave me this sense of, yeah, isn't that how the world, couldn't it
How
work
it is.
this way? Shouldn't it work this way? So that
Yep.
totally makes sense with like Pippi Longstocking. Did you read Dr. Dolittle?
Oh my God, so many times. And the movie with Rex
Yes.
Harrison, and oh my God, that was my
There was those like
dream.
activating books. I didn't think
Yeah.
of it as activation, but they would just open stuff up inside me where I was always a little convinced that that was just around the corner.
Yes.
And then it was, which is like, it took a really long time. It was like up until I would say my mid-teens where I started to like really kind of lose hope that
Yeah.
actually was just around the corner.
Yep. Yep.
These possibilities, and then that would have been like the late 90s. So cut
Yep.
to now. Where
Cut
you're
to
like,
now.
oh shit, it is
It
so
felt-
fun.
Oh, such a dark
So on the one
journey.
hand, if you're like a zoomer right now and everything's so weird and malleable and
Yeah.
psychedelic and holographic already, that's really cool.
Yeah.
But there is a kind of like extreme delayed Christmas present type feeling
Yeah.
about being
Wow.
like, oh, I'd given up hope, but
Yeah.
no.
I'm so there with
magic.
you, man. That abandoned hope, or that like crushed hope, was just, oh God. I have journal entries about not very fun.
Yeah.
Fun now,
I mean,
though.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah, funner now. But yeah, Pippi Longstocking, Dr. Dolittle. Did you ever read the books of John Belair? He had
No.
like, oh my God, what's it called? The Mystery of the Blue Figurine. So they were set in the 20s and 30s, like, but very much Depression era. And it was always like a little boy who was friends with either an old lady or an old man. And they would have adventures like time traveling or mystical or magic. And they were kind of like, on the one hand, a bit Edward Gorey gloomy-ish, especially
Ooh.
with, it might have been that Edward Gorey did the illustrations, but anyway, like they were like very like a bit gloomy, but then always so full of magic and possibility and stuff.
Awesome.
I fucking love those
Nice. I'm trying to think, because it sounds like something I would have read, but I'm not sure I actually read those, because that's definitely up my alley. So if I have not read them, I kind of think I need to read them now.
Yes, I recommend. They are fan-freaking-tastic and so magical.
Taking notes. Can you think of a dirty
Yeah.
joke that you like? You want to come back to that later?
Okay, we'll both bring a dirty joke to the next episode.
Bring your dirty joke.
I'm more like on the fly. I'll make like a dirty,
Yeah.
like somebody will say, I'll be like, but
Yep.
I don't know if I actually have real dirty joke memorized.
Like, I'll do the inference during a conversation, like, and you can literally just not beat "that's what she said." Like sometimes
Yeah.
that's literally all you need too. But it's really fun to take context of whatever somebody's saying and like, oh, is it hard or what? Like just yeah, I'll take that context anytime. Do you have a character that's like? Did you want to?
Oh,
pick
right.
one
My
second, or-
character. Okay. I've always very much identified with Paddington Bear.
I love Paddington.
Again,
Oh
we
my
go
God.
to England.
Yep.
And I was just thinking lately about Paddington Bear. Yeah, he's good for my avatar because it was like his whole thing was like bumbling through something, but then it all turns out even better than expected. You know, like the housekeeper was that bear always lands on his feet. And he loves marmalade
Love
and
that.
hot cocoa, which I love cocoa and marmalade
Amazing.
as well. He also has really good boundaries. Like he'll give people his hard stare when they're not being, you know, like he's not
I like
afraid to
that.
stand up for himself.
I like that a lot. Okay.
Yeah, like I got a huge compilation of the Paddington Bear books as a gift the year I lived in England, and it was like boo
Oh, that's
boo.
awesome. I
So that
love
would be
the-
my avatar, and then
Okay.
higher self. Sometimes lately I feel like my higher self is a bit like Rick from Rick and Morty, and I'm like trying not to go into like the cynicism of that world, you know, but sometimes I feel a little bit
I love that.
where he's just
I feel it.
over everything and yeah.
Man.
And like a
Oh,
bit impatient with
yeah. That's
his Earth family.
that resonates pretty that resonates pretty hard. I like that. Although
And I
like,
did have
tell them.
gastritis for a while. So
Oh, you did?
I wasn't burping like he was, but I did have a
No.
lot of esophageal
That
like,
sucks.
issues.
Was it part of your awakening or was it
Mhm.
just like, was it
It was part of
really?
my dark night of the soul. I stayed in that dark night of the soul for so long. It was I feel like longer than was strictly necessary. Like I just
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like I know that I had moments of joy clearly, but I feel like that dark night of the soul lasted for 4-5 years. I was like, maybe not,
Mhm.
but I was like, I was gonna say I was being dramatic, and then I'm kind of like, actually, I don't think that I am because I'm wow.
And it's funny because to hear like people like Jessa and Noah who had their original things way or like 20 years earlier and then went back to sleep, but then like 2017 was a big activating year for
Yeah.
them. And I feel like I kind of like because I quit my job in 2016. I had like a full-time office nonprofit job that I quit, and I had this in my head. I was like, I'm gonna write my novel and I'm gonna like do psychedelics, and I think it's
Yeah.
gonna get kind of trippy and interesting. And then it was
And
like,
then it
no, I'm gonna
wasn't.
spiral into
Yeah.
a 3-year suicidal depression of
yeah.
complete existential angst.
Dude.
And yeah, I feel like possibly there was a 2017 exit option that I didn't take, but that's all good. It's all good. We get there when we get there.
We really do. And there is a version of
Yeah.
you that did that. That
There's a version, yeah. Like bring that version in and just
Right.
like absorb that
Absorb it.
person's joie de vivre.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, though, I feel like maybe that version didn't. I don't know. I feel like you are exactly where you're supposed to be, which is annoying to say and
Yes,
hear a lot
yes.
of times. Oh man, I almost wanted to smack myself in the face just now saying that, but like, because there are so many timelines that I can see where I'm like, oh, if I had just done this, I bet I would have fill in the blank. And I'm like, would I though? And this is why I'm coming around to the fact that there are no such thing as regrets. If I
Yeah.
have a regret about something, that is a false. No, I do not. I'm like telling myself that I should feel regret, but it's not. I am exactly, no matter how many bad things, I feel like the timeline I'm on is, even though it jumps around, like I'm jumping to different timelines all the time, like this version of me is the one that was supposed to survive in my consciousness or whatever. Because I'm sure other me's exist or whatever, and I don't, that's fine. What I am aware of right now is, and maybe the other KKs are saying the same goddamn thing I'm saying, doing a podcast with their other KK friend. I don't know. But like it feels like you don't take the on-ramp in 2017, like you just weren't really supposed to. You knew you had another lesson to learn or whatever. I know what you're
Well,
saying though. It's frustrating.
It's funny because I actually didn't used to be a person who had regrets. And now it's like more once I started waking up and I was like, oh, it's like almost like took me in like a reverse way where it's like now I'm like, oh
Yeah.
geez.
I know.
Because I think I didn't have regrets because I didn't believe that there could be like a pleasurable way or like a, like I was kind of, so it was
Yeah.
like almost learning that option
Interesting.
existed was like,
Interesting.
fuck. but I'm not really, I wouldn't say I don't feel super hung up on it, the 2017 thing. You're totally
Makes sense.
totally right. It's just funny that that's how I came to have regrets, was like waking up. It's
Waking
like
up.
a phase of my ascension.
Yes.
It's like, God damn it.
I know. I could have fucking, would it be
Yeah.
easier now? I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I make myself feel better when I think about those different timelines that I could have been on or whatever by saying, when I shed this meat suit, whenever that time is, and I absorb back up into my whole soul, I'm going to have experienced all of those timelines anyway. And I'll just get those downloads at the
Oh,
time. I don't
love
know
that.
if that's how it works, but I'm telling myself that because it feels good. And so that because I'm just a sucker for like information. And I'm like, give me all the info, give me all the experiences. I want it all right now. I will absorb
Yes.
them when I
I
return.
also feel spectacularly grateful that I had my awakening mostly coincide with the pandemic, to just be inside all by yourself all the time.
Yeah.
But like I was tripping balls, and I just feel for people that just had to go through that. That's their dark night of the soul, was the pandemic.
Yeah, right. That is
brutal.
very good point. A very good point. I think that's the thing. Like I get to talk about this stuff with you and like have people in my community that I'm finding one by one, little by little. I'm drawing them to me and it's all awesome. And it's like, if I didn't have that, well, I mean, it would have been like what I was going through most of my life anyway, and just not knowing it. Thank God I know it now. And I can put that in context and just be like, I am macroing right now, or I have this of my life. It's hard, but at least I know what's going on so I can stabilize myself as best I can. But for the people who don't know, I'm like, I mean, I had 40 years of not knowing. So I guess I understand how they're feeling, but I just want to tell everyone, I'm like, it's okay. You're going to make it. You're just macroing. That will mean nothing to them and they will think I'm insane and I'm not going to say that. But I just want to like hold them and be like, it's okay.
Yeah. Did you have any other before we? Okay, I'll end on a very silly one that's not even a question. It's
Okay.
like just a silly thing, which was was going to say, are you familiar with the 90s expression, what's the scenario, Mario?
Okay, this is interesting.
If you're not,
I know that I have heard it, but I literally have no idea why I know that. I feel like
this
a
is
fake
why
fan right now.
Okay, this is why we had to end on this.
Okay.
Because this is a fake expression that I keep trying to retroactively introduce into like the cultural unconscious and lexicon. So I like, since it's been like maybe close to a decade now, and I'll just post on Facebook. I'll be like, anybody remembers, or Twitter, I'll be like, anyone remember the 90s expression, what's the scenario, Mario? Because I really want to like create my own.
That's amazing.
What's that phenomenon when it's like
Mandela effect?
Mandela effect, exactly.
Yes.
I've already done it with somebody else's. It wasn't mine, but it was my friend who always said, the expression screwed the pooch?
Yes.
But because I was so vulgar, he would say, pooched it. You pooched it. And I took that up and I said it everywhere. And then it started to spread everywhere I worked. People would start being like, oh, you pooched it. And then it was on the TV show Happy Endings. They were like, you pooched it. And I was like, mupping it around. I was like, oh my God, we did it. We got that one into the thing. So anyway, the fact that you think that you've heard what's the scenario, Mario, which I feel like weird. It's like, because people were saying it because of the Mario Brothers were so big, right? So I was like, what's the scenario, Mario?
Which is hilarious because I've never played a Mario game in my entire life. Like it's in my cultural reference, but like I've never played one. And so I was like, oh, I must have heard that because of the time I've spent with people who do play those games. I love you so much that keeps playful curiosity. This is like wonderful and I'm here for it.
I promise you, within the next few years, it's going to show up somewhere. Somebody's going to say, what's the scenario, Mario?
I'm going to post that on Twitter too. I'm going to put that somewhere. Like, I'm going to help you because
Thank you.
I'll be your partner in crime.
Yes. What's the scenario, Mario?
Okay.
Wow, this was awesome. And now it's like I've also have the pleasure of you've done your homework in advance because I have plenty of questions for next round.
Me too. This is so exciting. I love, the way that I feel right now having just gotten some of this out of my head and feel like I have created something that's worthwhile, even if it's just for myself. It feels so fucking good. And I feel very honored that you are here with me doing this. So thank you very much.
Oh,
And I
same.
appreciate all of you.
Thank you to anybody to listen to this first episode.
Yeah.
Please join us in the future as we continue to be silly and explore things. If you see this somewhere where you can rate it, please rate it because it will help it, I don't know, spread around further.
For sure.
I mean, rate it 5 stars or else
Yeah.
don't rate it. at all.
Obviously.
Yeah, I think we're going to be everywhere. Try to post links to things in the show notes if you want to
Yeah.
find it.
Yeah. And if you have questions, we have an email address,
We'll put it in the show notes.
but you can definitely write to us. Fuck it. Yeah,
Ask
we're
us your
gonna
galactic questions.
we'll come up with a good outro.
It'll be like our
Honestly,
tagline.
yeah, oh, this is gonna be fun. We'll make that a segment. We'll just be like, what should our outro be? And we'll just keep talking about it until we fucking figure it out, and then whatever. But for now, it probably just fades out. And should I stop recording? Did we say goodbye?
Peace out. This is us saying goodbye.